X-Men 97? Can you believe they made 97 of these? So I just watched episode 3 of X-Men 97. I'm actually recording this the night that I'm uploading my reactions to parts 1 and 2, so you already know how I feel about episodes 1 and 2. I loved them, and I was really hoping that they would continue their stride, and to my surprise, they have. Episode 3 was really weird, and it caught me a little off guard, but in the best way possible. I love that they keep subverting my expectations and going into different directions that I really never would have expected. I don't remember if I mentioned this in my previous video, but one of the biggest reoccurring villains in the original show was Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister. I won't give you like a comic book breakdown on Mr. Sinister because honestly I don't know much about him outside of what I know from the original show, but I'll tell you a little bit about what he did in the original show just to catch you up to speed. So there's 3 major things you should know about Mr. Sinister. 1, he is obsessed with mutant genetics and genetic engineering. He's actually old as shit. He's been experimenting with mutants since the Victorian era, and because of his experiments, he's been able to prolong his life. 2, he has a bizarre obsession with the Summers family, particularly Scott Summers and Jean Grey. Now, I vaguely remember something from the comics that Mr. Sinister thinks Scott and Jean, or who you think is Jean at the time, would create who Mr. Sinister would believe to be the ultimate mutant with their son Cable, which is a little bit laughable now because Cable is a character that's a little bit stuck in the 90s. Come to think of it, Mr. Sinister's real name is Nathaniel Essex, and Cable's real name is Nathan Summers. I wonder if there's a connection. And number 3 is something that's exclusive to the 90s animated series, that being his experiments with Morph. To give you a brief rundown, in the original show, the creators wanted to take a character that nobody really cared about in the comics and kill them off. That way you'd understand the gravity and the tone that the show was going for. And they opted for the character Kevin Sidney, known at the time as Changeling, but they decided to change their name to Morph because at the time, the character Beast Boy over at DC was known as Changeling. Anyway, in episode 2 of the original series, Morph is killed off by a Sentinel, and during the entire first season, you feel the weight of that character's death, specifically with Wolverine because they were shown to be best friends. However, at the beginning of season 2, it's shown that Morph is somehow alive, and it's revealed that Morph was resurrected and brainwashed by Mr. Sinister. And after Sinister kidnaps and experiments on Scott and Jean, Morph has to resist and overcome Sinister's mind control, which they eventually do, but Morph continues to struggle with PTSD and doesn't even rejoin the team until the end of the series. And during the opening theme of all 3 episodes, we see Morph surrounded by the shroud of Mr. Sinister, which led me to believe that they were going to do something with the character. I just didn't think it was going to be in the 3rd episode. This episode does a lot, maybe even too much, but I won't know for sure until I watch a few more episodes. So the cliffhanger at the end of episode 2 was that there were 2 Jean Greys, calling into question, who's the real one? And we find out through Beast's experiments that the one that we've been following the last 2 episodes was the clone. And what's interesting is that the clone didn't even know. I thought they were going to do something where the clone was infiltrating the X-Men, but no. Her true intentions weren't even revealed to her until Mr. Sinister unlocked them when the other Jean showed up. And that's when she's revealed to be the Goblin Queen. And she uses her telepathic powers to terrorize everyone at the mansion. And we get this really cool body horror stuff that they wouldn't have dared to do in the 90s. It reminded me a lot of something you'd see from like John Carpenter's The Thing or even Society, though Jubilee says it looked like something out of a bad horror movie, so I really hope she wasn't referring to either of these. Though, come to think of it, the allusion to Society was something that I didn't need to see, and it's something that Gambit can't unsee.
Gambit can never unsee that.
See, even he thinks so. Yeah, they're continuing to lean in on the whole Gambit, Rogue, Magneto love triangle that I didn't like from the other 2 episodes. Though Morph continues to be my favorite character, and even though I don't like the Rogue and Magneto stuff, Morph finds a way to make it kind of funny.
Rogue's really training her stamina with the new boss.
It don't say that.
And I kind of love that Morph and Wolverine tag team picking on Gambit, and they tell a few adult jokes here, talking about Rogue's stamina and Gambit's balls being sucked up into his body.
Go easy on him, pal. Think you just sent his hush puppies up into his stomach.
And it's not just the adult jokes, it's the themes and the action, and it kind of feels like how we as adults remember the X-Men show from the 90s, how it was cool and awesome and adult, and in some ways it is. It's definitely a kid's show, but this show captures that essence of what we remember from the show, even if it wasn't actually there. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So after the Goblin Queen wrecks everyone at the mansion, she kidnaps Nathan and goes back to Mr. Sinister, and they have to come up with a plan to try to find him. And because Morph has a past with Sinister, Morph is the key to finding him. Again, I love that they're acknowledging that, and also again, I really love this iteration of Morph. So Morph takes Cyclops and a subsection of the team to find Mr. Sinister, while Beast and Wolverine try to help the real Jean recover her memories. And there's a scene where I thought they were almost gonna do something I didn't like, but they didn't end up doing it. In an attempt to get Jean to jumpstart her memory, Logan asks her to read his mind, and they have this moment where Jean says,
I mean, all that to you?
More.
and I was like, please don't go there. I don't want you to go there. But literally like 2 seconds later, she regains her psychic link with Scott, and that dashes any chance Logan has with her. Thank you, show. So the ticking clock element of this episode is that they're trying to get to the baby Nathan before Mr. Sinister can complete his experiments. And the Goblin Queen proves to be a pretty worthy diversion. Though while she's fighting everybody, she re-brainwashes Morph, and I don't think we see the aftermath to that. Maybe they'll follow it up in the next episode. I said that a lot in my previous video, and to be fair to the show, they are following up on things really quickly. Anyway, the Goblin Queen pretty easily takes everyone out, and it's up to a still weakened Jean to fight her telepathically, though the fight is a little bit more philosophical and emotional than you'd think, which is a good thing. That's not a criticism. In fact, Jean is able to reason with the Goblin Queen, and she joins the X-Men to try to save the baby, but it's too late. And that's something I couldn't believe that they were doing in episode 3, where the baby is already infected with Sinister's technovirus. I thought that was something that they would stretch out over the season, but no, it's all in this episode. Now, whether or not that's a good thing remains to be seen, but I personally think that you could have built up maybe their relationship with the baby over a couple of episodes. I understand that it's a baby and you're obviously going to care about a baby, but I feel like their connection was just like, here's the baby and now we're taking the baby away. And that's what I meant by this episode is a lot. I can't tell if they've rushed through something or if this was the story they wanted to tell and it's all going to pay off in later episodes, but as of right now, I feel like it's a little disjointed, not terrible by any means, just a little disjointed. So they defeat Mr. Sinister, save the baby, and bring him back to Beast. And let me just tell you something. Beast is batting 0 for 3 if we're counting graduation day. Beast couldn't save the professor, he couldn't restore Storm's powers, and he can't cure the baby. Come on, you're supposed to know everything, Beast. What makes us like we are anyway?
Gamma rays, pollution, ozone depletion. Television.
Now, something I brought up in my previous video is that they didn't really explain why Bishop was here. They did say he was time displaced, but they never mentioned why he joined the X-Men or why he's still around. In this episode, they explained that Beast and Bishop are working on his time band to get Bishop back to his own time. And when Beast says that there's no cure for the technovirus in this time, that's when they decide to let Bishop take Cable to the future, hopefully to find a cure for him there, which we already know from the original show and from the comics that he grows up to become Cable. So I don't know, maybe they'll explain it in a future episode. And I keep saying that, I said that in my previous video, and they're already starting to do that, so maybe I should just put more faith in this show. Who's to say? Something else that I really like that I noticed in the last 3 episodes is that the opening title sequence changes depending on the episode that you're watching. Like in the last episode, they added Magneto to the roster, and in this episode, they almost use it as a continuation of the previously on X-Men recap, which I thought was pretty cool, seeing key moments from the original series that are important to the episode redone in this show's style. And here's a few things to think about, knowing that they changed the opening title sequence. Storm's not on the team at the moment. They added Magneto to the opening roster. We see Roberto with Jubilee in this episode. We know that Nightcrawler is going to show up. Bishop is no longer on the team because he went back to the future. is this show gonna have a rotating roster? If that's the case, I'm all for it. That's something that's completely different from the original show. Like, we saw that Angel and Iceman were previous members of the X-Men, but we only ever see that in flashbacks. Anytime a character leaves, they're usually back by the end of that episode, or if it's Morph, they are dead in the beginning, and then they rejoin at the end of the show. Maybe we could see a few episodes where Colossus joins the team, or Dazzler, or hell, even Thunderbird. They removed him from the opening title sequence. He was on the bad guy side for some reason. I don't remember him ever being a bad guy.
Take care, Jean. Call me Madeline Pryor.
But why though? Anyway, wrapping up the recap, we see Storm in this really sick punk rock attire in a bar called Tequila Mockingbird. You gotta chuckle out of me, show. Just don't do a lot of those, it's gonna get old. And that's when Forge shows up, saying that he could help her regain her powers. Just like how the last 2 episodes made me excited to see Jubilee and Morph, I can't believe that the show got me excited to see fucking Forge. One of my biggest criticisms with the Marvel Disney Plus shows is that the quality tends to drop off after the first 1 or 2 episodes. So I was really worried that episode 3 would have a major drop off after the amazingness that was episodes 1 and 2. And luckily, I didn't really see that. Sure, I had a few nitpicks here and there. I had a few nitpicks in the first 2 episodes, but again, maybe I should just trust the show to know where it's going. They've already paid off a few things that I criticized in my previous video. I still don't like the Rogue Magneto stuff, and the Society reference with them made me feel even more icky, but I like that the show actually seems to have consequences. Like, this episode ends with the real Jean Grey and Cyclops just looking at each other in silence in their destroyed bedroom, which could signify their broken relationship. And now Bishop's gone. Who knows for how long? It could be for the rest of the show. I doubt it. Bishop came back a lot in the original show, but is he going to be in the next few episodes? What do you guys think is going to happen in the next few episodes? Leave a comment below and let's keep this hype going. I haven't been this hyped for a Marvel show since, WandaVision? That was almost 2-3 years ago now? Shit. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, and do all that algorithmic shit to get my videos out there. Watch another video maybe, and I'll have some new videos coming out pretty soon. Until next time, later. Special thanks to Mrs. Froggy, Big Drippy, Rukix, Robith, Straight Queer, Catherine Escobar, and Charizard for supporting me on Patreon. And thank you for making it to the end of the video.